Nenomoshia Yates, or Neno as she was affectionately known, was a 12-year-old girl from Southeast Washington, D.C. In 1971, she was a sixth grader who began her first year at Kelly Miller Junior High School, located in Northeast Washington, D.C. Neno lived in an apartment on Benning Road with her father and stepmother. Her stepmother just gave birth, therefore Neno's father was splitting his time between visiting his wife and newborn at the hospital and being home with Neno. Just before 7 p.m. on October 1st, 1971, Neno purchased a few items from the Safeway grocery store. The items she purchased were flour, sugar, and paper plates. The purchase of the items were confirmed by a store clerk when the clerk was shown a photo of Nenomoshia. Let's listen to Jason Jones, a Washington, D.C. native, describe Neno's neighborhood in the 1970s.
Down the street, you had the People's Drug Store. Further down, you had the Safeway. Right here, the apartments were still here. They're still pretty much the same. They just remodeled them right now. Over across the street right here, where the houses at is 1, 2, 3, it's 4 or 5 houses right there. They're pretty much fixed up now, but they was pretty much messed up, a whole lot messed up than it was. A couple of them was abandoned. The street pretty much the same. This always been Benning Road. Bus stop always been right here. Bus stop always been up there.
So there was always a bus stop in front of 4950 Benning Road. These are brick apartments here, 3-level apartment homes here.
And it was still pretty much a busy street like it was today.
So there were always people driving through. So it was always people driving through, walking by.
Always people driving through and walking by. It was pretty much a lot of kids out here at the same time too. What happened to the young lady was a tragic. That's why it's still kind of funny that he was able to even get her in the car and nobody seen nothing, nobody heard nothing.
Right. You would probably say that somebody probably saw something.
Yeah, more than likely somebody probably saw something or forgot about it or just didn't know what was happening or paid it no mind. But I'm almost certain somebody seen it because this was always a busy area. This has always been a busy street.
Neno's body was found only 3 hours later. A 16-year-old female hitchhiker found her body along the embankment of Pennsylvania Avenue in Prince George's County, Maryland. She was strangled to death. The strangulation was so severe that her esophagus broke. Medical examiners also concluded that Neno was raped by her murderer. On the morning of October 2nd, 1971, a different Safeway employee discovered a bag of flour, sugar, and paper plates on the sidewalk next to the woods in the 4900 block of Benning Road. The employee would later state that he found the items scattered along the street nearby as if, quote-unquote, the person had disappeared into thin air.
We're here where Neno lived, and it's on a busy street in Washington, D.C., Benning Road, Southeast, 4952. So we're here in front of Neno's address. She walked about 2 to 3 blocks to, would you say it's about 2 to 3 blocks, right?
Yeah, about 2 to 3 blocks. We're standing right in front of it now.
Front of her apartment. You could basically see, so it was back when she was kidnapped and murdered, it was a Safeway. Currently, right now, it is a KIPP DC school, which is a public charter school in the city. They have many locations all over the city. So you can almost see the Safeway, or what was the Safeway, from here. So Neno, she walked about 2 to 3 blocks to the Safeway on the day she went missing, and she made it to the Safeway, made her purchase, but never returned home. And the items that she purchased from the Safeway were found on the street.
Once again, the victim was fully clothed, wearing the same outfit that she wore the day of her disappearance. Yet one thing was missing: her shoes. In addition to the previous victims like Carol Spinks and Brenda Crockett, green fibers were also found on Neno's corpse. In fact, the fibers were scattered throughout Neno's clothing.
So we're standing across the street, like I just described in the last part. We're standing across the street from her home. which is a wooded place right at the corner of Benning Road and Hannah Place Southeast. This is a wooded area. It's always been a wooded area. It's a bus stop here. Mature trees, greenery. The trees are even hanging down on the street. This is where a Safeway employee on October 2nd, 1971, a Safeway employee found the sugar, the flour, and the paper plates in a bag along this block, which they're assuming was the items that Neno purchased from the Safeway that was just only a couple of blocks down the street. So at this point, you know, you could pretty much assume she, of course, was picked up, but she was picked up and the goods, who knows what happened, whether they threw the goods out the window or she was just snatched and the goods were, you know, she dropped the goods. Of course, we're not sure. We don't know what happened, but literally in this block, this is literally facing across the street from her home. You could see her home right there. And as you can hear with the cars passing by, and from the previous account, this has always been a busy street. So it's very odd that no one, I mean, you would think that someone would have, you know, have saw something, but it's very eerie just standing right here, just knowing, you know, what happened. Of course, it was so long ago, but just standing here and experiencing this is, I don't know, this is a different feeling of energy right here.
Nenomoshia's neighbor was at home around the time Neno disappeared. In a statement given to the police, the neighbor said she watched Neno get into a blue Volkswagen. She thought nothing of this because the Yates family had a close family friend who drove a blue Volkswagen. Since Volkswagens were considered to be an extremely popular car in 1971, this information was classified as a very weak lead. Here is Romaine Jenkins' thoughts on the Yates case.
But look at Nenomoshia Yates.
Right.
In the same block where
Same
she
block.
lived, the groceries were found.
That's
She-
true.
You know, all she had to do was go across the street to the store, because those are long blocks over there. The 4900 block of Benning Road is a long block, you know.
And like he says, right there, but
Yes, and nobody saw anything. You gonna tell me on Friday evening, all of those black people over there who run into the grocery store, going to the liquor store, the kids don't have school, so they out, and nobody saw her get snatched? No, because he didn't have to snatch.
one thing that I have yet to get over with this case is the fact that these girls were taken during the daytime in pretty busy neighborhoods. Not necessarily broad daylight, but some were kidnapped during the spring and summer months, or even the fall months, considering the month of October is still warm and the daylight savings event has not occurred yet.
Exactly. This guy was pulling over to the side of streets to pick these girls up. And for the most part, it was happening before sunset. Not to mention how he was able to dispose of the bodies on the side of the road without being seen.
Yates was going to the store. She wasn't going to get in anybody's car. When you talk about the 4900 block of Benning Road, come on. What's more densely populated with traffic
I
and
know.
people?
After Yates was murdered, a link between the murders was finally established by officials. Detective John Rossi, an officer assigned to the case, was the first to address the public about the murders collectively, stating that there is some reason to believe that there is some connection to some similar deaths. And that's when the infamous Freeway Phantom moniker was born. Pat Collins, a local news reporter, coined the term. Here's Detective James Trainum speaking about how the Freeway Phantom case was named.
He was kind of a celebrity. In fact, it was Pat Collins, who now works for Channel 4. I think he worked for WTOP at the time. He was the one who gave the guy, the nickname Freeway Phantom.
The case was gaining a little momentum in the local press and media. It coincidentally happened to be around the same time that the FBI was asked to get involved. Criminal profiling was a strategy very much in its infancy at the time, but that did not stop the FBI from bringing in dozens of experts to create profiles on the Freeway Phantom.
I would say the third case, that's when detectives from the district, let's say if the victim lived in number 13 or 3D at the time, they called it 3D at the time, then those detectives, 7D detectives, and they were detailed to the homicide unit. And anything, and with bodies being found on the highway, some of the highways were considered federal government property, so that brought the FBI in.
A lot of times, law enforcement, when they get a case like this, they don't want to consult with experts because they think that they are the experts. They want to be the experts. But as a result, you miss a lot of stuff.
Was there ever a profile made with like
there
the
were more
FBI?
profiles than you can. Well, back then, first off, I'm sorry to mean to cut you off.
No, you're fine.
But profiling has been used and abused over the decades. Back when this first started, the behavioral profiling section of the FBI was in its infancy. It was just getting started. There was an FBI profile that was done, but there was a bunch of other psychiatrists and psychologists who were consulted as well, and they all did their own profiles. And in fact, one of my interns, when we were working on this, she was working on her PhD, and she kind of created this chart of all the different profiles, and they were all over the place. We had black males, white males, lived in Virginia, lived outside of military, non-military. I mean, you just kind of spun the wheel.
Right.
Anybody could have been a suspect right there. I don't know if we would have done any better, today with this. Like I said, profiling is not really a science per se, and it's useful when it comes to like prioritizing leads, but it's not something that you would ever want to eliminate somebody because they did not fit a profile, if that makes sense.
It was nearly a month and a half since Nenomoshia Yates' body was discovered. The Freeway Phantom and his boogeyman effect on the community slightly subsided. The mysterious identity of the murderer was still pondered. However, the thoughts were in the back of everyone's mind. Unfortunately, on November 15th, 1971, the killer's hiatus was over. Brenda Denise Woodard lived on Maryland Avenue in the northeast quadrant of the district. She was enrolled in her first semester of night school classes at Cardozo High School. At 18 years old, she was set on improving general skills such as typing, communication, and clerical work in hopes of gaining full-time employment in the near future.
We actually just visited where Brenda Woodard, her old neighborhood over there in the Maryland
Avenue.
Mm-hmm. And we were just, looking over there. Were those always apartments?
All of them were apartments. Yeah, the neighborhood has changed because I grew up over there.
Okay.
And the neighborhood has changed. They were all apartments. Some low income, but low medium. You even had school teachers who lived over there. So you had a mixed group of people who lived there,
Right.
But everybody knew everybody, Everybody knew what was going on in the neighborhood,
Yeah. Wow. So did she live in a house?
No, she lived in an apartment.
An apartment, okay.
Yes, and then when she moved out of her parents' place, she moved across the court with Brenda Shumpert.
Oh, wow. Okay.
See, she wasn't living at home.
Oh.
Yeah, but she lived in the same neighborhood. She just moved across the court with Brenda Shumpert. That's all.
Brenda's typical routine would include her riding with a classmate to night school and hanging out after class. Although on this particular day, her classmate's car was in the mechanic shop. Immediately after class concluded, Brenda met a friend at Ben's Chili Bowl on U Street in Northwest Washington, D.C.
Because she had gone to visit her parents that day, the day before she got killed. Because her father drove her to night class. And usually so she might, maybe it was longer than a week before she got killed. Okay, let me be accurate on that. But it was a short time. All this happened in a short span of time. Because she had just started night school.
Later on, they decided to board the same Metro bus to go home. Brenda and her friend parted ways after several blocks when she transferred to another bus at 8th and H Street Northwest. According to the police report, the bus driver recalled Brenda exiting the bus at 19th and Benning Road Northeast. And the driver also mentioned that Brenda was carrying school books.
The bus driver says that he thought that she got off at 19th and Benning. That's where he thinks that he let her off. But I think he is mistaken. 19th and Benning would be too far for her to walk to her house. She would have gotten off at 21st and Benning, gone straight up 21st Street to Maryland Avenue and to where she lived.
We just drove that track. Yeah.
And if you notice, 21st Street is a one-way street.
Right.
Early the next morning on November 16th in Cheverly, Maryland, a local police officer by the name of David Norman was driving near Prince George's County Hospital when he spotted a body. The body was placed near an entry access ramp of Baltimore-Washington Parkway, or simply known as 295 by many local Washingtonians.
She knew him. Of all the victims, I felt that she knew him. Because Brenda was kind of scrappy. She could be scrappy. And somebody's just not going to force her into a car.
What were the odds for Brenda's body to be dumped along the same trail her mother regularly walked to get to work? Ironically, her mother strolled past Brenda's wig on her way to her bus stop on the morning of November 16th. Was this a diabolical attempt at attention made by the killer, or was this a complete coincidence? On the next episode of Somebody's Watching.
Her mother worked at the hospital at the time, and her mother was leaving work, or leaving or coming, I'm not sure. I want to say she was leaving work, and there was police tape, and she saw this wig on the street, and this is as it was told to me by authorities. And she saw this wig and thought to herself, that, oh, my daughter has a wig like this. My daughter wears a wig like this. Well, she didn't know that it was her daughter's wig, and her daughter's body was found right there.
If you're enjoying Somebody's Watching podcast, please like, share, and subscribe. If you have any tips regarding the Freeway Phantom case, please call 202-656-5299 or visit the website www.somebodyswatchingpodcast.com.